Jeff Gordon, NASCAR's original young gun. He was young, handsome, and God almighty, he could drive a race car. But before Jeff Gordon, there was Rob Moroso. And then Rob Moroso was gone. Steve Bird's stint as Rob Moroso's crew chief began with a casual conversation at a racetrack with Dick Moroso, Rob's dad, and a longtime performance parts manufacturer and supplier.
Dick sat me down, we talked, and he says, this is what I want to do. I want to take my kid a couple years, in Daytona Dash, and then go to the Busch Series, and then the Winston Cup, And here I had to move back to Connecticut again, but for only about 8 months we run out of Madison, Connecticut, get Clinton, Connecticut, then right beside it. And I think we run, maybe 10 dash races the year before, when he first got going.
This was Birdie's chance. He was going to be a crew chief, and if working with a kid as young and raw as Rob Moroso was what it took, so be it. But first, he had to get through a couple of pretty substantial issues prior to their first test session. First, Pete Babb. Old Pete took being a crotchety old fart to new heights. But if the truth be known, underneath that crusty exterior was a heart of gold. At the time, Pete was the chief steward at Langley Speedway in Virginia. And when the Moroso team showed up for Rob's first ever test in a race car, Pete Babb put them all to work.
First time we ever went to test with Robbie. First of all, Pete Babb. You remember Pete Babb, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, here we go to Langley to test, and there's signs all the way laying on the racetrack. And we pulls in, and I really didn't know Pete then. And I said, "Yeah, we're here to test." He says, "Well, you guys want to test?" He says, "You got to help me put all these signs up before you test." I says, "Oh boy," and that's. Me and Pete become good friends, but he made us put all them signs up before he tested.
Turns out there was an even bigger problem.
And then Robbie gets in and he's trying to take off in the car. He never drove a standard before.
You're kidding.
And I said, no. And I says, listen, just doing easy on the clutch. So he got going, we run good and everything, and we got back, and I said to Dick, you need to buy him a 4-speed so he could drive around town, in it, And so he did, So it was a pretty neat deal.
So he got a new car out of the deal.
Well,
so he could learn a stick shift.
I don't think it was too good of a car. It was a Chevette or something, a 4-speed Chevette,
All right.
Although the young driver's talent behind the wheel was undeniable, there were still some hurdles to clear once Rob actually started to race.
When the 4-cylinder dash cars first started, we blew a lot of motors late in races,
Yeah.
And finally, Bob Rinaldi worked for Moroso anyways, and Bob and Dick put their heads together, and they figured it out pretty good. And next year, I guess we won 3, 4, 5 races, So it was pretty good.
Rob Moroso was just 19 years old when he won the first Busch Series race of his career in 1988 at Myrtle Beach Speedway. A couple of months later, the series visited Charlotte Motor Speedway. Winston Cup ringers always won Busch Series races at Charlotte. The legendary Sam Ard was the first Busch Series regular ever to win a Busch Series race at Charlotte, until Rob Moroso came along.
Rob Moroso, a great run this afternoon. Congratulations on winning the All-Pro Auto Parts 300 here at Charlotte. What a tough weekend, but you fought hard.
Oh, it was. It was a tough weekend until today, I missed the driver's meeting, which was, I think, turned out good for us because we started in the rear. That's the rule. If you miss the driver's meeting, you start in the rear. And then there was a wreck right where I would have been running if I had started where I was supposed to. So I think that helped me out. I might miss it again in the future.
Robbie, you got a win earlier this year in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Now you come back to what is accoladed as the most prestigious speedway in America, and to win here is to be a part of a long, long history, and that's got to be special.
Well, I've always loved running here, you know, and it's a awesome, really nice track, and this is not going to sink in for a while.
Tell me about the race itself. The first half of the race, did the car perform as you wanted it to?
Well, you know, I wrecked the car late in practice last night, and the crew stayed up all night fixing it. And through the first half until the first, you know, that intermission there, the car wasn't handling. I was real disappointed how it was handling, but with that intermission, I knew my crew would be able to get a chance to get it back running good, and as you see, they did an excellent job.
Second half of the race, did you feel confident with the second half?
Oh yeah, I told the crew, and you know, they agreed that we'd pit early, which paid off. You know, we pitted early that here in the spring, and it paid off. We pitted early here today, and that just had us out there with fuel in the car towards the end, and that's, you know, I didn't have to pass as many cars because they had to go in and get gas. So we just stayed out there and hoped the tires could take me all the way.
Congratulations on being a great champion here at Charlotte.
Thanks a lot, Pat.
Rob Moroso not only swept both Busch Series races at Charlotte in 1989, he went on to collect the championship over veteran Tommy Houston. This was not a clash between rivals who kept their distance from one another at best, and at worst, who hated each other. Far from it. Tommy Houston's son was one of Rob Moroso's best friends.
And he and Marty, they were like this.
Yeah.
They were absolutely like this. Marty would go down and he would stay down at Rob's and down at Dick's and on Lake Norman. They would go down there. And Rob always, Marty would come back and tell stories about Rob. He said, Rob said when he got through racing, he wanted to be a professional bowler.
A bowler.
Yeah. And Marty said, you know where his trophy for winning Charlotte was? And I said, no, where was it? And he said, he had put it in a closet down there in his bedroom, back in with where he had a bunch of old dirty linen and old uniforms and stuff. And it was stuck back in there. And he said, Rob said he wanted to be a professional bowler. He said when he got done racing. But I'm glad I have got to know people like that.
He was a good kid. You know, he liked to mess around. He was honest with people, always with a smile, you know. I watched one of your podcasts with Tommy Houston, you know. Yeah. Tommy and the kids were close, you know. I can remember one time at Orange County, you know, me and Marty, they got these binoculars, you know, and we were sitting there and we're going like this with the binoculars, you know, looking. And I says, here, Rob, when you take these binoculars and look at that girl up there. Well, Rob takes these binoculars and he's got them and he's looking through there and he takes them off. And Marty put all never sees on the eyes. And here's Robbie with two silver eyes. And Robbie didn't get mad about it. He just laughed about it and went and tried to get the never sees all off, you know.
With his championship in hand, Moroso moved full-time to the Winston Cup circuit in 1990. Just 3 rough races into the season, Steve Bird moved on.
There was a few things that happened that I think made it bad. And I seen that, you know, after 3 races in. And I said, well, I've done this Winston Cup racing already. I don't need to do it anymore. So that's when I said adios. You know,
was there anything in particular, or?
Well, you know, it's just a couple things, and you know, you don't like something, you're gonna take off. You know.
September 30th, 1990. Rob Moroso came back from this early race incident at North Wilkesboro to finish 21st, 6 laps down to race winner Mark Martin. Hours later, just 4 days past his 22nd birthday, Moroso was dead. It was later determined that he had been driving while impaired, 3 miles west of Mooresville, North Carolina on NC 150. He went into a curve at a high rate of speed, lost control, and slid sideways into the path of another vehicle. The other driver, 27-year-old Tammy Peyton Williams, also died in the accident. The news spread like wildfire in the close-knit racing community.
Mike Bumgarner, the body man there, he called me at, 3:34 in the morning.
Really?
You know, and it was a tough thing to take, but yeah. Like I said, it was just a whole tragic accident, so.
For Steve Bird, the question is both simple and complicated. Who was the Rob Moroso you remember?
He was a great kid. You know, he just had a mind of his own sometimes, you know. And
a little more than 2 years after Rob Moroso's tragic accident, Jeff Gordon made his Winston Cup debut. The sport would never be the same. Gordon was called Wonder Boy. He rose to some of the loftiest heights this sport has ever known, and he was a first ballot inductee into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. But what of Rob Moroso? What might have been? My name is Rick Houston. Please be sure to subscribe to the Scene Vault here on YouTube and be sure to catch the full-length audio-only version of our podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.